Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the LiveU Sports Show. My name is Chris Perry, coming to you live from Fort Myers, Florida. We've got a great lineup for you tonight. We're going to have Scott Rehling on from L2 Productions to talk about at-home production and REMI. And a little later, remotely interesting, will go international. Our very own Janelle Fleming will talk all things tennis with Crionet. But first, I must bid a very good evening to our technical director back up north in New Jersey. James, good evening. How was your Cinco de Mayo?
What's going on, Chris? My Cinco de Mayo was muy bien. Thank you for asking. But I did celebrate more of May the 4th, as I am a large Star Wars fan. How was your Cinco de Mayo?
Cinco de Mayo was great. It has to be one of my favorite holidays of the year. I got to tell you, I've got this killer margarita recipe. One of them is good. Two of them is great. Three of them, you may never want another margarita again. So I'll have to share that later in the comments section. Thanks, James. Keep up the good work. Thanks for running this in the behind the scenes for us. Kicking things off, our main story tonight, we're going to talk REMI, or the remote integration model. Here at LiveU, we call this at-home production. And I don't think any of us thought that we would literally be doing at-home production, as James is quite frankly doing right now in his studio back up north. But clearly necessity is the mother of all invention. So joining me now live from Texas is Scott Rehling from L2 Productions. He's the president there. Scott, good evening and welcome to the LiveU Sports Show.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Scott, can you tell me a little bit about L2 Productions and how you guys got started?
Sure. So L2 Productions is based in Austin, Texas, and we specialize in live event production and broadcasting, both to television, linear television, as well as online. Been in business for about 7 years. We're very heavy in sports and music. So in a typical year, we produce several hundred sporting events ranging from high school to college to professional, and music events. Being here in Austin, we work in a lot of the music event venues in the area, as well as the big festivals like South by Southwest and Austin City Limits Music Festival and those sorts of things. The way we got started was back several years ago when all of the college conferences were going through all of the realignment, and some schools were moving to other conferences and new conferences were launching. The American Athletic Conference was one of those new conferences that popped up, and we got the project to basically handle all of their live production. So when that happened, we started L2 Productions, and we've been growing it steadily ever since.
That's awesome, Scott. So clearly you've scaled your business quite a bit. Can you speak to how the technology has evolved and how that's helped you scale your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So like most people in this business, we started off with kind of the traditional mobile unit model, meaning that we would need a truck or a trailer or a flight pack system out in the venue with a full crew in the venue to produce a live television show. So we did that for several years, and really when everything changed for us is when LiveU came out with what we're talking about tonight, the REMI production solution. That changed everything for us. We adopted that very early on, and it basically allowed us to grow a lot faster because we're able to take on significantly more work than we would have been able to take on before with the truck and trailer model. Meaning that, again, before, to produce an event, we would have to have a truck and a full crew out in a venue. So to do an event in Florida and an event in Connecticut on the same day, that would require 2 trucks and 2 complete crews. And now what we're doing is we're basically sending small numbers of people, in some cases as little as 1 person, flies out to a venue with cameras and transmission equipment, and everything else gets done back here at our studio in Austin. So you can kind of start to think about that. That example I gave of an event in Florida and an event in Connecticut, we can now do both of those in the same day with the same crew and the same equipment infrastructure back here at the studio. We send 1 set of equipment out to Florida and 1 to Connecticut, and we're here at the studio doing both of those shows on the same day with the same crew. And so that's how we've been able to grow this thing really rapidly, is by being able to take on a lot more work than we would have been able to take on before with the traditional mobile unit model. And that's all been made possible basically due to the technology we work with you guys on, the LiveU at-home solution.
So what does your production control room look back home, and how many people would you have staffed in there for a typical production?
Well, the control rooms at the studio are sort of like a duplicate of what you would normally see in a typical production truck, right? So it's switchers, replay machines, graphic systems, audio mixers, scorebug, video playback, tape, all the things that you would normally see in a production truck is basically what we've got installed in a fixed environment here in the studio. So our control rooms look a lot like the inside of production trucks. As far as crew goes, it's again pretty similar to what you would normally see in a production truck. The number of people and what crew positions we're staffing sort of varies depending on what the event is and how big it is or how complex it is. But it's a similar sort of crew, that you would put in a production truck. So, producer, director, technical director, replay operator, graphics operator, EIC, video, bug op, and then depending on how complex the show is, we might add additional people like font coordinators and associate producer, associate director, those kinds of things. But again, it's basically a duplicate of what you would have traditionally seen in a production truck. It's just that now those people are in a fixed environment here in the studio.
And so on the other side of things in the fields, you said you send as little as one person sometimes, but on a typical shoot, how many people do you send? And I imagine there's some inherent challenges here with, being able to debug stuff, right? It's not just like being able to go out to the side of the truck and test the SMPTE fiber yourself. You're going to have to work with somebody in the field in order to actually debug things that might be going on in the field.
Yep. So again, it varies by event. I tell you, a lot of the events we do, I'd say over 50% of the events that we do, we send one person from our headquarters here in Austin out to the field. So we put a person on a Southwest Airlines flight with a bunch of road cases, carrying our cameras and our LiveU equipment, some basic audio, the basics that we need out in the field. And then we hire the rest of the crew that we need in market locally. So camera operators, sometimes we will hire an A1 or some type of an audio tech in venue, again, depending on the complexity, maybe one or two more people on site. But there's a lot of events we do where we send one person from L2 here in Austin and then hire everybody else we need out in the market. And actually, one of the things that's amazed me about this solution is that it just works. We really don't run into a tremendous amount of problems or troubleshooting that's required out in the field. It's one of the kind of inherent beautiful things about the LiveU technology is that it just works, and we don't have to rely on the venue for connectivity, for example. That's usually one of the bottlenecks in these REMI solutions is you've got to rely on in-venue connectivity. Of course, if we get LAN or Wi-Fi in the venue, we take it. But if we don't, or if it doesn't exist, we know we've got cellular to get the signals out. So, honestly, in a lot of cases, we literally show up, we set up our cameras, we plug our feeds into the LiveU equipment, and that's all that we do out in the field. Everything else gets done back at the studio. There are certainly, from time to time, we get more complex, and we might have talent in the venue, for example, and that requires a booth setup, and then somebody's got to manage that. So there's some exceptions, but a lot of what we do, it ends up being fairly simple and really trouble-free out in the field.
So basically just an EIC that's your remote hands and eyes plus, camera operators or local freelancers to be able to backfill. That's truly amazing.
That's essentially it.
So given that, most of your customers are probably very familiar with the traditional styles of production, the ones that you started out with, how have you helped them to understand that, at-home production is both reliable and even in some cases advantageous?
That's been probably the biggest challenge to getting this thing kicked off, and it's kind of a continuing challenge. People are set in their ways. They're skeptical of this model. Honestly, in most cases, we've had to prove it, meaning that we've offered to do an event either at no cost or very low cost, sort of a proof of concept, because people are skeptical even to this day. Now, actually, one of the things I think is interesting is this situation we're in right now with the COVID. People are sort of forced to figure out how to do this, and so I think that's going to change some things. We're actually getting a lot of calls right now from organizations that are thinking about how they're going to do events when things start to get back to normal, and they're looking at this type of a model. But historically, that's been our biggest challenge, is convincing people that this works, that it's viable, that it's similar quality, that there's all kinds of benefits to it. And that's largely been by just proving it, doing proof of concept and showing clients that it works, letting them experience it firsthand, and going down that route to get folks comfortable.
So Scott, I got to ask, what is the coolest production that you've ever done for sports?
Oh boy, there's been a lot. Well, we did a women's basketball game a few years ago that set an NCAA record for the most overtimes. It was a women's basketball game in Memphis, at the University of Memphis. It went into 5 overtimes. That was pretty crazy. But I'd have to say probably the coolest event that we've done, and we actually get to do this every summer, is the Dyckman Park Street Ball Series out in Harlem, in New York. So this is street basketball. Basically, it's a cement court out in the middle of Dyckman Park in Harlem, and they put up a few bleachers, probably enough to hold 500 people, but they cram about 1,500 people in there. And it's a high school all-star basketball series that features all of the top juniors and seniors in the New York area, and then they bring in all of the top athletes, the basketball recruits from all over the country to compete against those people. So we've gotten to see, some really great kids coming up at a young age, people like Zion Williamson and some of these guys that are now, in the NBA. But it's just such a crazy environment. Again, there's way too many people. It's hot. They've got a DJ, they've got an MC, people are on the court. It's just absolute mayhem. It's a crazy environment to produce a TV broadcast in, but it's a lot of fun and a really unique event.
That's awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining us to talk about your experience with at-home production tonight. And, really, it's been a pleasure.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
So Scott's actually going to stick around with us for a little bit as we shift into our remotely interesting segment tonight. Crionet, a sports production and distribution company, will join Janelle to talk about their at-home production experience, the Davis Cup Qualifier.
Hi, everyone. Janelle Fleming from LiveU, introducing our remotely interesting segment once again. I'm joined today by some folks at Crionet who are situated in countries all over the world, although in their homes safely. So welcome, guys.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you.
Hi.
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. We're actually going to talk today about the Davis Cup Qualifier that Crionet and L2 Productions produced and broadcast back in March. What's really amazing about this event is that it was truly global in many facets. For those of you that don't know, the Davis Cup is kind of like the World Cup of tennis. So this qualifying tournament is a fairly big deal. This year, it was a 3-day event located in Hawaii. It was produced live in Austin, Texas, and then distributed to destinations all over the world, and primarily Europe. So before we begin, why don't you each introduce yourselves briefly and tell us a little bit about what you do? John, I'll start with you.
Hi, John Cagle. I'm a consultant with Crionet. My past is I worked in tennis most of my career, and so I came aboard with Crionet with all of their tennis tournaments and just helped them out finding solutions to deliver their tennis to clients around the world.
And hi, I'm Gaetano Guarino. I'm Italian, as you can tell from the accent maybe, but I'm based in London with many years. I look after the international business development of the company, and I work alongside with John on those projects.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about Crionet? I understand you're sort of headquartered in Italy, but you operate worldwide. So what sort of solutions do you have? Who are your typical customers?
Well, basically, we have different business units looking after these different aspects of technology in a sport event. But today we'll like maybe to speak about our media solutions, since we produce hours and hours of live sports from many locations in the world, Europe, Asia, North America, South America. We basically can guarantee to our clients the same standard of quality with the cost-effective solutions, and we always constantly in looking for new ideas. And this is why maybe we came with the project with L2 and with the LiveU implementation in Idea Way.
So since we're here to talk about the Davis Cup Qualifier and sort of the workflow you utilize to produce this event, before we get into the details, can you tell me what the obstacles were that brought you to sort of seek out L2 and the LiveU solution? Why weren't you guys able to produce this the traditional truck on site way?
Well, basically nowadays you need to be competitive with pricing, cost effective, and obviously you need to be scalable. So I think that trying to send a kit to the away was becoming too expensive in terms of resources, shipment, people relocation. No matter, I mean, people will love to go away from Italy, from Spain, from US, but to be honest, why not looking at remote solutions? And you can be cost effective, and if you can keep the same standard, if not better, why not?
So were there any hesitations about doing the production this way? I know oftentimes people sort of think about bonded cellular as a new solution and not so much a way to produce and do sports. So were there any initial concerns? And then I guess what puts your mind at ease to go forward with this workflow?
Yes, obviously there were so many concerns, especially from our producers and people that normally handle operation on site. While I think on a commercial point of view, it's nice to push for new solutions because you have a case study, a new story to tell to your clients. So yeah, it's very hard to fight internally with your own colleagues, but at the end of the day, the world is going that direction. Internet is reliable. We have fiber connection almost everywhere. So why not try?
I guess, John, similar question for you. I mean, being face to face with the team on site has its advantages, both above the line and below the line. So do you feel like you lost anything by doing the event this way? And on the inverse, do you feel like you gained some stuff aside from monetarily by doing it this way?
What we gained is that it's just another solution that we could use. Yes, we would like to be on site and do it there, but as Gaetano said, cost effective, it was impossible. So what we did, which I quite liked, is hired a local crew in Hawaii. So these guys are freelancers. There's a huge tennis event in their state, so it's nice that they were able to get work, and it worked. Like it's another thing to say, yes, we can go out and do this. So we can do this. We can do this in Hawaii. We can do this anywhere in the world using this technology.
Can you walk us through, sort of the tech outline of what was involved to pull this off? And we know it was in Hawaii. We know it was cut in Austin, Texas. How many cameras, LiveU encoders did you utilize? How did the graphics element tie in? Can you walk us through how that worked?
Yeah, so it was 8 camera setup, and we had a LiveU encoder on each camera. And we took all of these feeds and fibered it back to Austin, Texas, where we had a director, producer, which was me, graphics, and we had some replay and editor, engineer, and then we added the comms on there as well. And so it was clean coming in and dirty going out. And that was pretty much the setup.
So I guess you can sort of tie in here as well. What did you leverage at the Austin control room site? What technology, what video switcher? They mentioned replay and graphics. How did that work remotely?
Yep. So as John said, we brought all the feeds in over LiveU. So we had our units out in the field in Hawaii and brought those into LU 2000 servers at the studio. And we were working off one of our control rooms there, which is permanently installed with Blackmagic switcher, new tech replay. Full audio. We had our announcer in the studio. I don't know if that came up yet, but the announcer called the matches from the studio. And then we had the Crionet system itself at the studio being operated, which was then implemented into the show. So, multiple things on site and multiple things in the studio.
So overall, producing it this way, how do you think it went?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it opens a lot of new horizons for you, for your company, for your business, because it seems like you're going to the office in the morning and do your daily job at the desk, but actually you are producing live sports. And to be honest, I think it's amazing, and we are really looking in new solutions and new events with the same IP based with LiveU. So I think I really love it especially as a sales guy. I think I can use this as a case study, and it's amazing.
What about distribution? So how many broadcasters pick this up? In what countries? Can you share any stats on the broadcast and that side of it?
Yeah, our final client obviously has agreements with different broadcasters worldwide. So we don't get access to the list, but what we can say that it was shown in all the continents with the live show. In the US, I think it was shown on CBS. And at the same time, we used fiber delivery thanks to Scott facilities. So we didn't see any difference in a normal setup.
We distributed from the studio through LTN and then up to a satellite, which then was used to distribute out to all of the different TV networks that took the feed. We also had LiveU as a backup between the studio and LTN. So we've got their encoders obviously in the studio, but we did have LiveU in line as well as a backup to that.
So I guess, you mentioned a few times, about cost and the savings doing it via LiveU over the traditional way. So, I guess my question really is, what future events do you envision using the solution for? Is it opening up a new market for you guys of projects maybe you hadn't done before because it's the cost-wise it was too high?
At the moment, of course, it's very hard to predict, but we need to realize that we are living in an isolated lockdown world, and we need to give facilities to everybody to keep their old jobs and from home or maybe from a remote location. But with these solutions, the impact of operation is much less, and I think it should be the first choice for everybody before looking into on-site production.
And Gaetano, your directors, graphics, replay operators, the people on your staff, they were worried before. How did they feel after?
Before, they were like, we can't believe this work, because obviously they love the feelings they feel when they get to the venues and talk to their cameraman, to give a sort of like story behind the scenes. But after that, they loved it. They feel so more relaxed. I mentioned that I don't need to leave my town, my country, my family to go away for 7 days for producing, while I can produce it from my office located near my house. So it will improve also, the lifestyle of those people that we are all involved behind the scenes. So I think they all loved it.
So I guess lessons learned, anything you would do different doing this project or something like this again, and on the tech side too, and any solutions you would incorporate, that sort of thing.
Lessons learned. I mean, it works. It was like, as Gaetano said earlier, we're so used to just going on site and being there. And if there's troubleshooting or a problem, we can sort it out just in a matter of seconds. Whereas here, we're relying on technology. We're relying on third parties. Latency, I was worried about that. Like, would it be delayed? But everything went smooth, and we were very happy with the end product.
I think future plans, it seems like, especially in a tennis, right? It's a non-contact sport. There are already a few events popping back up. So I imagine you guys are looking to produce events this way as things start to come back up.
As I said before, and I'll say it again, we need to look in that direction now. And we're going to keep looking in those products in partnership with great partners like Scott, because this is the way how we should handle business from now on. Whatever we did until now, it's the past, and we need to look at the future in this way.
Well, it was excellent to speak with all of you. Thanks so much for your time and your feedback, and especially thanks for putting your faith in L2 and in LiveU. We definitely appreciate it. So I hope we get to work together very soon. So on that note, Chris, back to you at Nana's.
Thanks, Janelle. Nana says hi. And that's going to do it for this edition of the LiveU Sports Show. Be sure to tune in next week as we head back to the racetrack to talk Formula G1 racing with grip. Also, very important, mark your calendars now. LiveU has a special announcement coming on June 2nd. I promise you're not going to want to miss this. On behalf of everyone here at LiveU and the collection of wooden ducks over my shoulder, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Chris Perry. Good night.